So it's already a week until the presidential election and the elections. And I just want to, I'm very political, and there is a lot of things here that are at stake. And you see, I'm very open liberal, and I just want to say that both of the candidates are not that good, but at least Biden is still better than Trump, because obviously, in spite that Biden wasn't really a good candidate, at least he is still a very decent, and he has empathy, unlike the candidate who was challenging him, the current president. And a lot of things have been going on in the Trump administration over the past 4 years, and I've never been kept silent about it. So we obviously know that the Trump presidency is the most treacherous, the most incompetent presidency ever in US history. You obviously, this is also a president who sells out to enemy foreign governments. He's not just a threat to America's global security. I mean, not a threat to America's national security, but he's a threat to the global security because, you know, as what Stephen King said in his, he said that Trump is worse than the books he writes because he has the nuclear launch codes. Anytime he can he can launch those missiles at any time, and we know that based from bombshells that have been coming out that he has a secret Chinese bank account. That's why he keeps babbling about China. You can look at the recent stories. We know that is never he never says a word about Russia because he's under the leash by the Russians, especially Putin. And then we know that there are factors what got Trump elected in 2016. Number one was the jobs. He promised that people that he would bring back jobs. They fell for it. Two, voter suppression. People who were going to vote but they didn't vote. Three, people thought that Hillary was going to win the election. That's why they didn't vote. Also, people who got duped by the words of Trump. And of course, the meddling by the Russian government. We can talk about how, which I'm going to get there in a minute, that the Trump administration, Trump's presidency, the way he behaves, the way he acts like a dictatorship, is almost like the third world countries that were established by America's Central Intelligence Agency over the past decade since the 1950s. So we can talk about how the CIA, they installed all these dictators, meddled on democratic elections, uh, assassinated democratically elected leaders. But right now, this isn't the issue. What's going on? This is about another enemy foreign government that is doing everything that are at their best through Putin to undermine democratic institutions, not just in Europe but also around the world. This is Putin trying to create his one world order. And now I do think that, like, we can talk about American imperialism, but this really isn't the issue of what really is going on. This is more of a situation between stability, order, and chaos. This is why I'm voting for Biden and Harris. This is why, in spite that I also do not think Biden was a good candidate to begin with, but at least he's the alternative to uh, what would be 4 more years of chaos under the Trump administration. So during the primaries of in 2019, my first two choices were Elizabeth Warren and Pete Buttigieg. I like the progressive agenda of a female candidate. Also, I love the agenda of Pete Buttigieg and being that he's very open, not just as a homosexual, but his Christian faith. I do also like Andrew Yang because Andrew Yang is a financier. He's a good businessman. He knows the numbers, he knows the calculations. And please, please don't vote for Trump because he's a businessman. Trump is not even a real businessman. He's a scammer. He's a con artist. He scammed many people. He scammed his business partners, scammed even his own businesses he personally owned, and that's why he shut them down. Personally, I'm on the finance sector. I'm also in the business sector. I'm also one of the business owners of my company that my parents own, and you know I wouldn't do business to someone like the Trumps who are just a bunch of liars and con artists. So now, moving back, the we also know that Trump, he also undermines the U.S. military, also undermines their U.S. allies, and he's making America to the world like a laughing stock. And now the world and America's allies are laughing at him. And as Robert Reich said in one of his videos in Inequality Something, that they're looking at America like America has no president. That's true. And even like other Western countries like Australia, Canada, England, and even France are talking behind the back of Trump because of his obnoxious behavior. He he also he also allowed General Michael Flynn to um, turn over a political someone who was seeking political asylum from Turkey, now turn him back over to the Turkish government because he was the opposition leader of um, the Turkish leader, Prime Minister Erdogan. Then he goes around and you know takes for granted of Russia putting bounty on U.S. troops, even making U.S. troops withdraw from its Kurdish allies in the northern Syria region because of a blackmail from Erdogan, even undermining America's intelligence community. Like CIA verified that Saudi Prince Mohammed bin Salman assassinated a Saudi based American journalist, Khashoggi. What did Trump do? Just play around with it, like denied it. Because Trump has very big business dealings with the Saudis. Even his son in law, Kushner, has a very big business dealings and big debts to the Saudi businessmen. 666 is his address, and he doesn't know that that's the devil's number. And then moving on into the election, I know that Biden hasn't that much been saying, even though that he's been very vocal about other communities of color. But at least, when he wins, he's going to be very broad and open to it. Trump takes for granted black communities and other immigrant communities because he's using it for his own benefit. He's using it to, he's a deceiver. Trump is a deceiver. And he, all this, the reason why he's doing all this prison reform or this reaching out to this black community because of Kushner. Kushner lobbied this uh, prisons. If not, Trump would be just ignore it. Now, I feel that, some people who will be voting for Trump this election are duped. They're duped by the lies of Trump. They're duped by the words of comes out from his mouth, and that's why they're getting brainwashed. So now, the other thing is that we know that all this racism has been getting bigger under the Trump presidency because he's allowed it. He's rousted all the racist groups to go out and start wreaking havoc on American streets. We know that when Trump announced his presidency and he started making all his racist speeches, racists have been more racist than ever before in US history. Now, this is one of what's really going on right now. All the news and all the headlines that have been going on about the Republican politicians, it's becoming that this is becoming a spiritual punishment. This is becoming a political, spiritual, and physical punishment for their reckless and evil behavior in Washington and around the US government and the country, and treating the American people like just piece of garbages and toys. Now, if we look at this news that has been going on, like Jamie Harrison, who was challenging Lindsey Graham, had raised more money than Lindsey Graham because people are pissed off at Senator Lindsey Graham. You look at Mitch McConnell, he's having some bruises on his hands. It's supposed to be like heart disease. This is a sign that Republicans are losing and Republicans are being punished by God for using his name for their own stupidity. I'm a Christian and I uphold the real Christian values of love and unity amongst people of the world. And what is really this evangelical Christian preachers rallying behind Trump and saying that, Trump was sent by God is pure blasphemy. I'm sure that if Jesus was here right now, he would be really pissed off at those people, just like what he did with the Sanhedrin at the temple. He would call them, as he called the others, hypocrites and wolves in sheep's clothing. Now, the other thing is that if Jesus was here right now in the US, what if Jesus escaped to the United States? How do you think it would have been there? How do you think the consequence would be? How do you think circumstances would be? Probably Jesus would be on the cage right now, suffering. And even though, and if Jesus was still around right now, he'll be pissed off at the Trump administration, he'll be very mad at Trump on the mistreatment of the asylum seekers and immigrants at the border. And now Republicans are using all this, all in the name of God, all in the name of Jesus, for and justifying that it's not even a Bible issue. Of course, it is a Bible issue. Look up Deuteronomy, Leviticus, and Proverbs. They talk about like the poor, the immigrants, the sick. It's all in there. Look it up. Read the verses. You know, if the Bible was the law in this country right now, and the New Testament was the law, well, guess what? These Republicans who have used God, even Trump himself, would be punished already, even executed, because that's what religious that's what laws in that's what laws do in the name of religion. Look at in the Quran. Muslim countries, they use the Quran as the law. You violate the Quran, you're dead. That's what have happened here if the Bible was the law. So, I hope that things would change in the years to come. That whatever that Obama did and Trump destroyed it will be restored again. It's just like the Bible verse. It says the things that Jesus will restore. Trump Trump withdrew the nuclear Iran deal. I hope that Biden will bring it back. Trump tried everything to withdraw the U.S. relationships with Cuba that Obama opened. I really hope that Biden will bring it back. And I hope that Biden will come together with progressives, centrists, even moderates to help reform the country and establish everything together. With Kamala Harris, who even progressives love so much that they will work together. So I'm just a plain left leaning Democrat. I'm not really a progressive or moderate or centrist. I'm just a plain left. I'm just a plain left liberal Democrat. I'm not really among those lines. I admire the progressives because of their stand for economic and social progress. I love the centrists on their views on some certain things that are good for the country. Even moderates too with their, agenda. So that's why during the during the 2016 election, I've always, went for Hillary because I've always believed that America will have a first woman president. Even though Bernie was a good candidate and I admired him so much. Fast forward to 2020, when it was between Biden and Bernie, I supported Bernie because I really love the social policies of Bernie and his able to address everything that Biden couldn't in front of his face. But now that it's Biden and Bernie withdrew, so that's why I went for Biden. I also was in selecting, I was also for Stacey Abrams of Georgia and Elizabeth Warren as the potential or the possible vice presidential candidates for Biden. I wasn't really fond of Harris, but because of the talks about her record as California's Attorney General. But now that, but then in August when Biden picked Harris to be his running mate, okay, he selected her. That's good. I don't mind. She's also good too. She's If you watch the vice presidential debate between her and Pence, she really knocked Pence out of her words. She almost like kept him silent while Pence kept echoing the words of Trump without even able to speak his own mind. So that's why both Biden and Trump were not good, but at least the Biden is decent and he's way better. It just shows that Biden, even though that he's not good, he's still a decent man. He's still moderate and he's still open with everything. While Trump is just loud, crazy, close-minded, and he doesn't listen to people around him. That's why almost half of the people left his administration. He never listened to experts about the coronavirus. That's why he got tested positive. People around him got tested positive. At least some admitted, like Governor Chris Christie admitted that it was a mistake. So now I'm so now let's go to the Nevada. Governor Steve Sisolak of Nevada has done a good job in handling the coronavirus. And he has also made sure that for the safety of Nevadans like me. That's why face masks, even though I don't really like wearing face masks, but it's for the protection of others from spreading infection. I'm on the Congressional District 3 of Susie Lee, and she's being challenged by a former wrestler, Big Dan Rodimer. And I never voted for Dan Rodimer, I voted for Susie Lee. And there are lots of propaganda posters, lots of TV ads stolen like Brother I, all favoring Rodimer. But I'm sorry, I never vote. I voted for your opponent, Big Dan. You'll never sell out my vote. You could display your big posters. Look at all these Nevada Republicans. They're displaying like this big posters like that of metropolitan areas of Nazi Germany and Soviet Union, displaying big TV ads like state-run TV, like KGB and CIA disinformation campaign, all favoring Republican candidates in Nevada from local to state. But I'm sorry. This is a big sign that Republican committees and Republicans in Nevada and Republicans elsewhere are losing. Even that's why Republican political action committees have done everything to put all their money on black propaganda because they want to take away back the seats that were blue and they want to turn them back red. I'm sorry. That's not going to happen because what is going to be red this election will be blue, and what was blue last election is going to be remain blue because almost all the people on the reds, Republicans, conservatives, have lost their dignity after their support for Trump. They've led themselves to a suicide. You see, I've been a lifetime Democrat since I was a registered voter. And I'm in solidarity with those who were lifetime Republicans. And they're going to vote against Trump this election. The organization Republican Voters Against Trump, I have so much admire for them. I have so much courage for them that those who didn't vote for Trump last election, and also for those who are not going to vote for Trump this election, because at least they admitted that Trump is a mistake for their party. And not just for their party, for the country also. What I do also as a Democrat, even though that some Democrats are partisan hacks, but I'm a Democrat because there's a lot to be taken care of for the country. Most Republicans are selfish for their selfish interests and the people who are funded by them. So, I know of some people who were registered Republicans from their lifetime. Some who voted against Trump and who didn't vote in 2016, but they are voting for Biden this election just to dethrone Trump because of his obnoxious, reckless behavior to the country. And not just that, I even know of some who are very political juggernauts like me, who are constantly posting things against Trump and other Republicans. And they were registered Republicans for a long time. I know of one who was a registered Republican who voted for Trump on 2016. He was an intern during the Romney campaign in 2012, but he's voting for Biden this election because he realized that how the Republicans had become over the past decades, especially with Trump. You see, when my when my father became a US citizen, he registered as a Republican. When the presidential election came, he voted for George Bush Sr., the dad of George W. Bush, George H.W. Bush. And after all the things he had seen, he got disappointed with the Bush. And that's when he became a diehard registered Democrat. He voted for Clinton. Some of my friends who voted for Obama in 2008 became registered Democrats because my father convinced them to vote for Obama. I voted for Obama in his reelection in 2012 against Mitt Romney, and I'm not ashamed to say that. I'm also happy that this election I voted by mail. Last election, I also voted absentee ballot. I voted for Hillary then. So, the Lincoln Project is also another Republican organization that is realizing what the Republican Party has become since Trump. You know, if I'm understandably correct, you know, this Republican Party was already transitioning to a reckless party since the time of President William McKinley because, according to some front pages I've been reading between Donald Trump and William McKinley, it's like the Republican Party that William McKinley had transformed. And Republican Party had gotten worse when the civil rights became a law, when the super racists who were Democrats all of a sudden switched to Republican like a snap. So, to if you're watching this, please vote wisely if you hadn't voted. If you voted if you voted already and you voted intelligently, congratulations. Because I already voted too. And I voted by mail. And I'm proud to say that I voted for Biden. Because it's the way that we can end chaos in this country that Trump had caused.